Hello.
Yeah, obeisances to you. Thank you for coming.
What's your call about? So,
Anchikopa, Kripa
what's your,
Sricha, Pavanebhyo,
well,
Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
where are
We
we?
have with us tonight, yeah, we're going to start the Krishna book,
Hello.
chapter chapter 64.
Thank you for coming. What's your call about? So,
Anchikopa, let
what's your,
me see, I'm getting a feedback.
well,
Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Sorry about that.
where are
We
we?
have with us tonight, yeah, we're going to start the Krishna book,
Hello.
chapter chapter 64.
Thank you for coming. What's your call about? So,
Okay, I'll shut that off because
chapter
what happened?
64?
Yeah, I believe it's chapter 64. But just before that, I'm usually just chanting a little bit. I'll just chant through the Krishna book song briefly. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Paramam. Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna,
Paramam.
Imam,
Rama Raghava Rama
Rama, Bhagava,
Rama Raghava Rakshama Rama Raghava
Rama,
Rama Raghava Rakshamam Krishna Keshava Krishna
Krishna, Keshava,
Krishna
Krishna, Keshava,
Imam Krishna Keshava Krishna
Krishna,
Keshava
Keshava,
Krishna Keshava Imam
Imam,
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita
Advaita, Rama, Shiva, Sari,
Gaura Bhakta
Rama,
Hare Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama
Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna
Krishna
Prasthaya
Krishna Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Swami.
Namane Namaste
Namaste Saraswati Devi.
Gauravani Pachadini Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pascha.
Deshatarane.
I was just wondering, Rupanilga Prabhu, did you have an opportunity to attend reading Krishna book with Srila Prabhupada personally?
No,
Okay.
no. But I have a question for you. I
Yeah.
have I have the second volume here of the Krishna book, chapter 9, the story of King Nrga.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned some other chapter. What was that?
Well, that's at different times. It seems I'm not sure if the original Krishna book was published in 3 volumes or in 2 volumes. Was it
Two.
three or two?
Two.
Two.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in chapter 2, they start again, chapter 1, chapter 2. But if you look at it cumulatively, the Nrga story is the 64th out of the 90 chapters. So
Well, see,
that's
I'm
what I'm
looking,
sorry.
I'm just looking at the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. I
Yeah,
get
but
it.
the thing, I, I go for books first.
Yeah, yeah. I probably should be
You read
looking at the book myself because it's
Jerusalem.
not good for the eyes to always be staring at the screen.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to do that if you don't mind. I'm just going to look at the book.
No, no, that's fine. And you can correct us if you read something different than what we're reading on the screen. Please let us know. Um, we've got our godbrother Sarvo Pama here with us, and I'm not sure. Vasant Prabhu, are you there too? I can't tell. He was here. Jeffrey Wallen, do you have an initiated name, Prabhu? Jeffrey?
Hey, you're so funny. This is John Mooney Das.
Oh, oh, Hare Krishna. I'd forgotten your secular name. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rupanuga Prabhu, please meet a wonderful devotee. He's a doctor of integrative medicine in Indiana, and he's also a musician, and he sells plants. He does many things. So
Everyone, call. Glad
I,
to in on it tonight.
I met Janu Muni, Rupanuga Prabhu, at a rainbow gathering. I don't know if you ever went to one of those back in the day of Srila Prabhupada's time, but they became very wonderful places to make devotees. People just live in the forest for 1 week, unplugged, making fires, running various kitchens, and we were doing nonstop kirtan and prasadam distribution. We had, what was it, John Amuni? Maybe a line that lasted like a half a kilometer or something. People with their little coconut shells and bowls lining up for
Uh,
for halava that was made out of olive oil.
Yeah,
well, I was deep in the ocean of management.
Deep in the ocean of management.
I didn't do much traveling too much after that.
Uh-huh. I heard though that devotees went to Woodstock. That Buri John Prabhu went to Woodstock.
You
He
might have.
he, he went with peacock feathers that he was distributing, and I think they had some books.
What,
Um,
what year was that?
oh gee, what year was Woodstock, John Mooney? Do you remember? 60 something?
way
60.
time. I don't know.
You were just a baby.
I wasn't
Yeah,
born.
I wasn't born.
You in another. You were in. You were in another body. Sarvopama, do you remember Prabhuji? Year of Woodstock, Sarvopama? 68, I think, something like that. Anyway, you were saying, Rupanuga, that back in the day, Prabhupada, he himself went with the devotees to the United Nations to do Harinam.
Yeah, he distributing a leaflet there, the peace formula.
Hmm.
Just a
So,
few devotees. I wasn't. That's before I joined. He went there with a few devotees right in front of the UN.
the Prabhupada liked us to go to these large events, right? Where there were a lot of people gathered.
No, there was no large event at all. Just your Baba and a few people, as I know.
Well, I mean, for instance, at the Family Dog, I think it was at auditorium in San Francisco, where Shamsundar organized Big Brother and the Holding Company, and Moby Grape, and Jefferson Airplane, and
Yeah.
Grateful Dead, and we did a concert there. Well, Prabhupada went up on the stage. He said it was no fit place for a brahmachari because it was so thick with marijuana smoke.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada went into the thick of it.
Yep. So Baba was recruiting everywhere.
Yes, yes. He didn't miss a beat. Thanks for coming, Sarvopama Prabhu.
Hare
Sarvo,
Krishna,
Sarvopama.
Vanchakalpatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Titanam Bhavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
You joined in Boston, I think, or New York City, I think, Henry Street, right? 72
In
Street.
70, yeah, 1970. I was a troublemaker and Rupanuga did the right thing. He told me to hit the highway.
So you joined Radha Damodar and you followed his instruction.
Yeah, even there I caused trouble.
That's hard to imagine.
Well, that's great that we're all here for Krishna book. Fantastic. All right, so let me just find the book here on the screen. And the story of King Nrga. And let's see. Okay, so Rupanuga Prabhu, if you'd like to start first, and then next in line is Janu Muni Prabhu, and then Sarvopama Prabhu, and
I
then
don't.
huh?
I don't as to whatever version, like the original version, because both websites I try to open, they're not loading. So I prefer not to read because I'm just reading what's.
It's on the screen. You read on the screen.
You're not
Okay.
able. You can't see the screen.
Well, I thought we were reading the Prabhupada's original, but I guess whatever. I mean, I have Database, but the other two websites I normally use, they're not loading for some reason.
That's why I'm showing the Database one, because Prabhupada books, the original, unedited, etc., is not opening for me. The site seems down.
Me neither. Okay. All right.
Anyway,
what about reading?
If you'd like to begin.
Okay, but
Sorry.
they can read on the screen here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Story of King Nrga.
Yeah.
The story of King Nrga. Once the family members of Lord Krishna, such as Samba, Prajumna, Charabhanu, and Gada, all princes of the Jadu dynasty, went for a long picnic in the forest near Dwarka. In the course of their excursion, all of them became thirsty, and so they began to try to find out where water was available in the forest. When they approached a well, they found that there was no water in it. But on the contrary, within the well was a wonderful living entity. It was a large lizard, and all of them became astonished to see such a wonderful animal. They could understand that the animal was trapped and could not escape by its own effort. So out of compassion, they tried to take the large lizard out of the well. Unfortunately, they could not get the lizard out, even though they tried to do so in many ways. When the princes returned home, their story was narrated before Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is the friend of all living entities. Therefore, after hearing the appeal from his sons, he personally went to the well and easily got the great lizard out simply by extending his left hand. Immediately upon being touched by the hand of Lord Krishna, that great lizard gave up his former shape and appeared as a beautiful demigod, an inhabitant of the heavenly planets. His bodily complexion glittered like molten gold. He was decorated with fine garments, and he wore costly ornaments around his neck.
Janumuni Prabhu, would you like to read 2 paragraphs?
Okay. Yeah. How the demigod had been obliged to accept the body of a lizard was not a secret to Lord Krishna. But still, for others' information, the Lord inquired, "My dear fortunate demigod, now I see that your body is so beautiful and lustrous. Who are you? We can guess that you are one of the best demigods in the heavenly planets. All good fortune to you. I think that you are meant to be in this situation. It must be due to the results of your past activities that you were put into the species of lizard life. Still, I want to hear from you how you were put into this position. If you think that you can disclose the secret, then please tell us your identity." Actually, this large lizard was King Nrga, and when questioned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he immediately bowed before the Lord, touching to the ground the helmet on his head, which was as dazzling as the sunshine. In this way, he first offered his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord. He then said, "My dear Lord, I am King Nrga, the son of Ikshvaku. If you have ever taken account of all charitably disposed men, I'm sure you must have heard my name. My Lord, you are the supreme witness. You are aware of every bit of work done by the living entities, past, present, and future. Nothing can be hidden from your eternal cognizance. Still, you have ordered me to explain my history, and I shall therefore narrate the full story."
Interesting here, one change in the paragraph, it says, "You are the witness." And you said, in my book, it says, "You are the witness." And you said, "You are the supreme witness." So supreme was added.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? It would seem that it's already a given uh, that the Lord would be supreme everything.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I mean, you know, best to leave things as they are unless absolutely necessary. We already understand Supreme Lord several times over as the story's begun.
Right.
So to put Supreme Witness doesn't add anything to our knowledge.
It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, it's kind of extra.
I asked Brahmananda Prabhu, what do you think about the book editing issue just a few months before he departed? And his very brief, poignant, I guess is the word, response was, it is very risky to alter the words of the Acharya. That was all he wrote to me.
Hmm.
Sarvopama?
We see the turmoil it caused
Yeah. Uh-huh.
still going on.
Yeah. 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 I've looked at it from that angle myself. You know, it's a divisive issue. I understand, with all due respects to Jayadvaita Swami, I guess you had your chance to talk to him, but you did.
I spoke to him a couple of times and I also wrote some essays about his changes, a number of essays. But when I met with him, I didn't discuss those things. I just met with him as another God brother, and we talked about his preaching in Africa. And I didn't talk about the book issue
Uh-huh.
because he wanted to see me, and I'm sure it wasn't just to argue.
Uh-huh.
He always had whenever people requested him, why don't you counteract Rupanuga's criticisms? He would say, I cannot do that. I cannot counteract. He is my senior God brother.
Yes.
So we had a different relationship.
Yeah, I understand.
Outside of that, I was very critical.
When someone
Not of
asks,
him, not of
yes.
him, but of the position. It wasn't personal, but anyone who would take that position of an
Uh-huh.
editor.
Ah, yeah. Not an enviable position to be in. Um, okay. Let's see. I guess it's my turn because I don't see Sarvopama anymore. Okay. King Nrga proceeded to narrate the history of his degradation caused by his karma kanda activities. He said that he had been very charitably disposed and had given away so many cows that the total was equal to the number of particles of dust on the earth,
Wait a
stars in the
minute.
sky, or drops of water. Yes?
So many change. Can we just? I just want to go over this one, please. I
Okay.
don't want to be interrupter, but please
Yeah.
please repeat that again. King Nrga proceeded to narrate.
Yes, King Nrga proceeded to narrate the history of his degradation caused by his karma kanda activities. He said that he had been very charitably disposed and had given away so many cows that the total was equal to the number of particles of dust on the earth,
Okay,
stars.
hold on, hold. He was very, it reads here differently. He was very charitably disposed and had given away so many cows that he said the number was equal to the amount of dust on the earth. So you
Mm-hmm.
see those little changes?
Yeah.
To particle dust changed to particles, and where he said so that he said the number was equal to, you said in a different way. Is you see what I'm saying? Those little changes. I mean,
Yeah, I have no
are they
clue.
really necessary? I don't know who did this. Who really edited this? I don't say it was Jai Goita Maharaj who did this, but whoever edited it made changes that were unnecessary there because it didn't help the meaning. It didn't clarify anything. And Shubhava told Harigriva, you edit for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think of is that it changes this Prabhupada's voice. And if you just start throwing words into somebody's sentences, it kind of changes the whole tone and mood of whatever might be being said, which is sort of an awkward thing to do.
That's a very brilliant comment, because you can change the voice, and you can change by changing the emphasis, or like here, it's more simply described than was just recently read. It's a simple way. And when you make things more complicated, you interfere with the beat, so to speak. You see, you interfere with the rhythm. You interfere with the style of the speaker, the voice of the speaker. So it may seem to be picayune to call attention to these things, but in the long run, Krishna consciousness is more than subtle, it's sublime, and every syllable, every word makes a difference.
Well, I'm just thinking of it as a musician. If I wrote and recorded an album and then somebody starts throwing random notes in to the music that I made.
That's good. It's a good
What
example.
the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Like, or you make a soup and then somebody puts some extra spices. Different, it's like, what? Well, I wanted to make it better. Yeah, but that's not what I was trying to make. Yeah, I didn't want a souffle. I wanted a cake or so whatever, So.
What was the word you used, Rupanuga? Picayune?
Picayune. We're not being picayune, which means to find unnecessary changes or find fault.
How do you spell that?
Oh gosh, P-I-C-Y is pretty unusual. I don't remember how to spell it. Picayune. It means to be needlessly picky, finding, fault.
That's not in my vocabulary. That's a new word for me.
Oh, really? It's an old word.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not very common today.
No.
It reminds me of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I remember when I first read his commentary on Bhaktisiddhanta, I thought, where did he learn English? We don't use these words anymore.
The English language is very much watered down since Srila Prabhupada's time, even in Bhaktisiddhanta's time. It's been very much watered down, and much slang is included, and much vernacular is included. The King's English, as they used to call it, has been very much watered down.
Yeah, I get it. Great. Stoka Krishna Prabhu is here. All right. Anyway, I'll go back to where I was. Yeah. Okay.
King Nrga proceeded to narrate the history.
Yeah. He said that he had been very charitably disposed and had given away so many cows that the total was equal to the number of particles of dust on the earth, stars in the sky, or drops of water in a rainfall.
Oh, stop.
According to
drops of water.
I'm sorry,
rainfall has changed to drops of water.
I have a feeling we're not going to get very far in the Krishna book today.
I won't say anything else.
No, I think we're going to be stopping like every sentence or two because I don't know.
Rainfall becomes drops of water.
Oh, Krishna. Let me see if I can get the old version.
I'm sorry.
I'm appreciating Prabhu you mentioning that, because I was raised on the edited versions, and only Ganapati Swami kind of turned me on to reading the unedited or original versions. And this is a real-time expose, so to speak.
Well, I'm glad, because I think a lot of new generation, I say new generation because I'm old, 82 years old, so I can call you new if you don't mind. So, but you all don't understand the extent of the changes. That's what has bothered the old school. See, the extent, the unnecessary changes, which is, it's Shastra. This is Shastra. So it's to me, it's so precious that aside from ordinary typographical errors or transcription errors, it bothers me.
Yep. Understandably.
Okay,
you see, the whole point about the cyclical succession is transparent mediumship. Everyone is transparent in this disciplic succession. And the disciple is supposed to be transparent for his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. You see? And that means you don't change a syllable. You know, as he said, I never changed anything and I never cheated anyone. Those are the two credits only two that Srila Prabhupada ever accepted.
Yeah.
So if you allow me to stay here much longer, it's going to happen. I'm going to have speak because it just bothers me to no end. What can I do?
I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, I no, I did find another copy. Now I'm just trying to find I found a PDF of the original Krishna book. So it's just a matter of getting to the chapter. I'm having to scroll through hundreds and hundreds of pages to get to chapter 64 here, which I'm doing as we speak right now. I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm just thinking generally the arguments that will come back is, well, Prabhupada said, whatever Jayadvaita Swami does, it is parampara.
Wait a
They will
minute.
use that
That's
argument.
not exactly what he said, but I'm not going to get into it. I know what he said.
Okay. Okay.
It didn't mean that
All right.
carte blanche.
I
You
see.
got it?
Uh-huh.
Where are we?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that Hari Sari Prabhu said to me is before each edition of a book would be published, if it was being, if it was like a second or third printing, he said that Prabhupada said the editor should make sure that, whatever edits needed to be done was done before that next printing. And I said, okay, but I said, when is enough enough? And Hari Sari Prabhu said, well, that's up for the GBC and the BBT to decide.
Was he talking about
That
since
was
Srila
his
Prabhupada
response.
disappeared? Is he talking about since Srila Prabhupada disappeared?
Well, I think he was saying that was an effect during the time of Srila Prabhupada, but he didn't make the distinction that after Prabhupada would depart, that that may not be applicable.
Okay, see, the point is that the Bhagavad Gita went through 6 or 7 editions, and nobody went to Srila Prabhupada between editions to make any suggested changes. And yet there were thousands were still in the book from 72 to 83, the same book, same mistakes, but nobody approached Srila Prabhupada with a suggestion to change anything. And it's between editions when editors are supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm. Does everyone see the screen now? Can they see that
Here
I
we are.
pulled up?
Yep.
You got the page.
Can you see? Yeah. Okay, so this should be the original one we're looking at. I went searching and came to Krishna.com and found this version. This should be what we all read. This should be the one that made almost 5,000 Prabhupada disciples. So I think it has some potency in it. Okay, so where did I leave off? Sorry for all of that. According to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, a man who is charitably disposed is recommended to give cows to the Brahmins. From King Nrga's statement, it appears that he followed this principle earnestly. However, as a result of a slight discrepancy, he was forced to take birth as a lizard. Wow, that's pretty scary. Because of a slight discrepancy, he had to take birth as a lizard. I can't imagine what I'll take birth as. Therefore, it is recommended by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita that one who is charitably disposed and desires to derive the benefit of his charity should offer his gifts to please Krishna. To give charity means to perform pious activities by which one may be elevated to the higher planetary systems. But promotion to the heavenly planets is no guarantee that one will never fall down. Rather, the example of King Nrga definitely proves that fruitive activities, even if very pious, cannot give us eternal blissful life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the result of work either pious or impious, is sure to bind a man unless it is discharged as yagya on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I believe that's chapter 3, verse 9. Yagya, what is it? Yagyartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karmabandhana tadartam karmakonteya. What's the last line of that? Does anyone remember? Anyway, that was 3 out of 4 lines. Not bad. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu must be performed, otherwise work binds one to this material world. Therefore, you should perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. It's amazing. I haven't quoted that verse in like 15 years, and it's still there.
So
Okay.
let me make one final comment. I won't make any more
Yes.
comments after this.
No,
In this
no.
verse,
Yeah.
in this you just read, there were a couple of changes. Now, the next question is, well, which book? My book or that book? Which is the original? So I'm pointing out to you that how much controversy is created when
Yeah.
these kinds of unnecessary changes are made. It's like, who can say they've got the original? Like this book I have is supposed to be a complete duplication of the original by Krishna Books Incorporated. And
Right.
I know Veda Guya personally, and I know he makes a big challenge out of not changing anything. So I would expect that I'm reading the original and you were just reading something else, but just a few words would change. So I don't want to make any more issue of this, but I'm just pointing out to you how this creates controversy.
Yeah. Yes.
So I won't make any more comments because whatever you read. But I'm just telling you that it's questionable, you know. But I happen to know that this book in my hand is a duplicate of the original.
I've got the original one here.
Yeah, looks familiar. Well, you got a later printing of it, but
Well, I think mine's even older than yours.
well, who printed that?
This says 1974 printing, 300,000 copies.
It's BBT.
Yeah, printed in Japan. Copyright 1970. 1974 printing. It says this is in, yeah, this is actually in 3 volumes. So maybe I don't have the original, but it's a 74 printing. That's what it is. I got it at a used bookstore.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I get your point. My point is there's enough divisiveness in ISKCON. You know, the Ritvik philosophy, and we all need to leave ISKCON because there's no Uttama Adhikaris in ISKCON, so we have to go to the Gaudiya Math and find the Uttama Adhikaris there. Or Prabhupada said, after I'm gone, he said to one of our God brothers, you know, and he asked, well, what do we do after you're gone? Prabhupada said, follow your heart. So for him, it means, okay, you know, wherever your heart takes you, you just go there. So, I mean, and you know, now the female Diksha Guru issue, feminism, on and on. And like, do we need more things to divide us, you know, to jab or not to jab? Sorry, I don't mean to give anybody a headache.
But this may be one of the more important things that you mentioned because it's the basis of the entirety of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The question is, how much is ISKCON now the same thing as the Hare Krishna movement that Srila Prabhupada brought with him to America? When you ask an old coot like me, who was there in the storefront in '66, I have to say no. I don't see Hare Krishna movement and ISKCON as synonymous anymore.
Wow.
And I was temple president 4 times, and on the GBC 18 years. So I can speak from experience. Therefore, we have to hang on to the books as original as we can find. That's all. because of the Hare Krishna movements and Srila Prabhupada's books. Undoubtedly. And Srila Prabhupada Bani is the real movement. So we take shelter of his unabridged, unrevised books and his lectures, especially his lectures. Because nobody can edit them except take a few things out. But they can't change what he says. So the lectures are super important, especially for the new generation.
Mm-hmm. And these books we're reading are what those lectures are based on also.
Srila Prabhupada gave 250 lectures on the Bhagavad Gita from 72 to 77. That's just on the Millen version. That's like thousands of pages more to the Bhagavad Gita. Thousands of pages more purport to the Bhagavad Gita. So anyone who says they read Bhagavad Gita can say, well, have you heard Srila Prabhupada's lectures on Bhagavad Gita? There's more pages, more purports than you read.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important those lectures are, because they take it further. They go further with more information, more knowledge, more revelation in those lectures.
Elaboration.
Yes.
Okay. Dvija Gauranga Prabhu, thanks a lot for coming. Would you like to read? Are you able to? Hopefully we won't. I'm sorry, I'm not able to pull up the usual PrabhupadaBooks.com version, which is the unedited one. So we're stumbling along here. Well, there's something sounds like it's a knife that's cutting from your computer. I don't know what it is, Dvija Gauranga.
Phone. So it's been a problem before. So maybe I've got sound problems. I don't know. Can you hear me all right? Is it?
Yeah, you're good now. Well, kind of. I don't know why it's doing that.
Where am I reading from? King Nrga?
Okay.
Yeah.
King
King
Nrga
Nrga
said,
said that the cows he had given in charity were not ordinary cows. Each one was very young and had given birth to only one calf. They were full of milk, very peaceful and healthy. All the cows were purchased with money earned legally. Furthermore, their horns were gold-plated, their hooves were bedecked with silver plates, and they were covered with necklaces and with silken wrappers embroidered with pearls. He stated that these valuably decorated cows were not given to any worthless person, but were distributed to the first-class Brahmins who were well qualified. None of them were rich, and their family members were always in want for the necessities of life. A real Brahmin never hoards money for a luxurious life, like the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas, but always keeps himself poverty-stricken, knowing that money diverts the mind to materialistic ways of life. To live in this way is the vow of a qualified Brahmin, and all of these Brahmins were well situated in that exalted vow. They were well learned in Vedic knowledge. They executed the required austerities and penances in their lives, and they were liberal, meeting the standard of qualified Brahmins. They were equally friendly to everyone. Above all, they were young and quite fit to act as qualified Brahmins. Besides the cows, they were also given land, gold, houses, horses, and elephants. Those who were not married were given wives, maidservants, grains, silver, utensils, garments, jewels, household furniture, chariots, etc. This charity was nicely performed as a sacrifice according to the Vedic rituals. The king also stated that not only had he bestowed gifts on the Brahmins, but he had performed other pious activities such as digging wells, planting trees. Scroll, please. Planting trees on the roadside and installing ponds on the highways.
I'm
How
finding
much-
these paragraphs really long.
They are
Personally,
long.
I only read one paragraph myself because I found it to be the length of two. but I'm not forcing anybody if you want to read more. Otherwise, Nanda Putney can read if she's able to read. Sometimes she's doing service. Are you able to read? Do you mind if
Yeah.
Nanda Putney reads next, Gauranga? Is that all right with you, Dvija?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Would you like to read, Nanda Putney?
Okay, so you're at the king continued.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. In spite of all this, unfortunately, one of the Brahmin's cows chanced to enter amongst my other cows. Not knowing this, I again gave it in charity to another Brahmin. As the cow was being taken away by the Brahmin, its former master claimed it as his own, stating, "This cow was formerly given to me. So how is it that you're taking it away?" Thus, there was arguing and fighting between the two Brahmins, and they came before me and charged that they had taken back a cow I had previously given in charity. To give something to someone and then to take it away is considered a great sin, especially in dealing with a Brahmin. When both the Brahmins charged the king with the same complaint, he was simply puzzled as to how it had happened. Thereafter, with great humility, the king offered each of them a fight between them. He prayed to them that he was their servant and that there had been some mistake. Thus, in order to rectify it, he prayed that they be very kind upon him and accept his offer in exchange for the cow. The king fervently appealed to the Brahmins not to cause his downfall into hell because of this mistake. A Brahmin's property is called Brahmasva, and according to Manu's law, it cannot be acquired even by the government. Both Brahmins, however, insisted that the cow was theirs and couldn't be taken back under any condition. Neither of them agreed to exchange it for the 100,000 cows. Thus, disagreeing with the king's proposal, both Brahmins left the place in anger. Do you want to scroll down, Gaura? Thinking that their lawful position had been usurped.
So I'd just like to ask a question here because whenever I read this pastime, I always feel a little bit jumbled. So just to get things straight here, the storyline. King Nrga, being the super charitable king, he gave away so many cows, but someone else's cow wandered into his herd. And in the course of giving away cows, he inadvertently gave away someone else's cow. So, so then the Putney, can you finish that then? So after he gave away someone else's cow, that person found out that he was giving away a cow that didn't belong to him, and he wanted that cow back. And so the person who received the cow that didn't belong to King Nrga, he also got angry when the original owner was angry that he was asking for his cow back. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, you're on it. Yeah.
What am I not understanding?
No, you got it.
Okay.
Well, one
Yeah.
defined detail.
Yeah.
King Nrga owned the cow, the problem cow. He gave it to one Brahmana. Then that cow became the owner. Then that one cow ended up back in Nrga Maharaj's cow pasture. And then he re-gave it to someone else.
Okay.
So that cow is gifted twice. The thing that puzzles me is Brahmanas are supposed to be compassionate, merciful, kind, forgiving. Why are they both angry about this? It's a normal, innocent thing.
You know the answer? The answer is that the difference between Brahmins, Karmakandya Brahmins and Vaishnava Brahmins.
Oh. Which
There's
is
there's Varnashram Brahmins and there's Daiva Varnashram Brahmins.
Yes, that's a great point. Also with King Nrga, he was giving away all this stuff not to please Krishna, but to get accrue benefit for himself. That's the whole point of the pastime. And that's why he was under the material law of exacting
Yeah.
positive and negative.
Yeah, yes, the whole point is that because he was following the karma kanja regulations instead of bhakti yoga, he
Yeah.
became entangled.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He became unfairly entangled. And that's the risk you take when you follow the karma kanja sect, because it's so rigid, you see, and you can disappoint someone, like in this case,
Yep.
disappoint the Brahmin who's very strict, more still than necessary here, not very compassionate.
Hmm.
Because you're a follower of a letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law, right?
Well, it depends on which law you're following. Like
Uh-huh.
Krishna says, Sarvadhanam Parityajya, give up all those laws and follow bhakti yoga.
Uh-huh.
So give up the whole karma kanja section. Vasudev, Srila Vyasadeva was criticized by Narada Muni for that.
Mm-hmm.
You have written all of these things, and Narada Muni is saying you're dissatisfied. Why? Because you haven't enunciated the pastimes of the Supreme Lord fully. Instead, you spend so much time on other worship and karma kanja section and other yogas and so many other things. And Srila Vyasadeva was not happy about that. He was not satisfied after compiling all the Vedas and all those Puranas and many things. And Narada Muni had the solution to his dissatisfaction. You have neglected, you have missed the point
Mm-hmm.
that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita. That the Vedas are intended for me and to find me. I'm the object of the Vedas. See what Srila Prabhupada has done? He's had to skip over you take a person in grade school and have them skip grades.
Hmm.
We skip grades by Srila Prabhupada's mercy.
Mm-hmm. Similarly, in the Govardhan Hill pastime, the residents of Vrindavan were busy. They wanted to honor Lord Indra. So that was like karma kanda as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And Krishna's argument was, what's the benefit? See, all those other, the flowery words, the Vedas, as Krishna calls them, were all to make life happier in this material world.
Mm-hmm. They weren't aimed at pleasing the Supreme Lord.
They weren't aimed at the real purpose of life, which is to surrender to Krishna.
Mm-hmm. So similar, the theme is recurring throughout this 10th canto in different forms and different pastimes. This is one of them.
Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gave all these things. If he just started off with surrender unto me, no one would have read the book, right? But he goes through all these different yogas and different and karma and explanation of all of this, just to take Arjuna and the reader through all the different things to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the things that conditioned souls are very much attached to.
Yes. Yes, it keeps them in the material world.
Mm-hmm. Stoka Krishna Prabhu, are you busy working or are you able to read? Usually you're just able to listen in. Are you able to read this time?
Could read this
Can I add one
just a
more point?
paragraph.
Gandhari?
Yes, my
Yes.
pronouns to everyone. Can I add one more point?
No. Of course you can. Please.
King Nrga, the word NG, I just want to share with you all that it's very common in Vietnam. So just to share it, because Vietnamese use this as a first name or last name. It's most common in that country.
I've seen that. There's a lot of Chinese doctors, they have NG also. So what's your point between that and Nrga? What's the connection?
Well, how Bharatvarsha was one over the whole continent. So
Okay.
maybe that's where King Nrga came from.
Okay, we're not sure. Stoka Krishna, that's an amazing background you have there. What is that? Is that a big hutch? Is that It looks quite
Guru,
amazing.
this is just a virtual background, so
Oh,
there's
okay.
nothing.
Very well chosen. I thought, well, you must be living in a castle like a king or something. That's amazing. Yeah, please read a paragraph, Stoka Krishna Prabhu. Where are you? Where are you broadcasting from?
Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, in Melbourne. Okay, down under, as they say. Okay, after this incident, I think that's where Nandapatni stopped from. Yeah, after this incident.
After this incident, when the time came for the king to give up his body, he was taken before Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, who asked him whether he first wanted to enjoy the results of his pious activities or suffer the results of his impious activities. Yamaraja also hinted that since the king had executed so many pious activities and charities, the limit of his enjoyment would be unknown to him. There would be practically no end to the king's material happiness. But in spite of this hint, the king, bewildered, decided first to suffer the results of his impious activities and then to accept the results of his pious activities. Therefore, Yamaraj immediately turned him into a lizard. Keep going, or just
That was
just
quite a
read
short
this one
paragraph. If you want to read another one, that was a really short one.
Right. King Nrga had remained in the well as a big lizard for a very long time. He told Lord Krishna, in spite of being put into that degraded condition of life, I simply thought of you, my dear Lord, and my memory was never vanquished. It appears that these statements of King Nrga, that persons who follow the principles of fruitive activities and derive some material benefits are not very intelligent, being given the choice by the superintendent of death, Yamaraj. King Nrga could have first accepted the results of his pious activities. Instead, he thought it better first to receive the effects of his impious activities and then enjoy the effects of his pious activities without disturbance. On the whole, he had not developed Krishna consciousness. The Krishna conscious person develops love of God, Krishna, not love for pious or impious activities. Therefore, he is not subjected to the results of such action. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, a devotee, by the grace of the Lord, does not become subject to the reactions of fruitive activities.
Thank you. Gandhari, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Can I make a comment? Would you mind?
Yes, please.
Because the last sentence
No, of course not.
is stated in Brahma Samhita, devotee by the grace of the Lord does not become subjected to the resultant reactions of fruitive activity. Now, this is a good example of a general statement versus a specific incident. For example, Srila Prabhupada said that a devotee will suffer the reduced reactions from pious activity, from pious and impious activity. And he gave the example of being in the kitchen and cutting your finger instead of your throat. So there is some hangover from the past life, sinful life, but it's reduced. You wouldn't tell that from the statement because this is a general statement. But Srila Prabhupada makes general and specific statements philosophically. And sometimes they get confused as to be contradictory, you see. You see what I'm saying? So here he's making a general, someone must say, but I heard Srila Prabhupada say that so what's, so he gets confused. But one has to understand these two categories. Srila Prabhupada, like Krishna, and says, no one will come back after coming from leaving the material world, coming back to the spiritual world. No one has to come back. So, but Srila Prabhupada said in the morning, well, that was a general statement. So the devotee said, you mean to say that if we go back to Godhead, we can come back again? And Srila Prabhupada said, free will. So that specific statement that Srila Prabhupada made was very instructive for the individual devotee to understand the nature of free will, which is something that's not very well understood by many devotees, the absolute nature of a free will. So that even if you go back to Godhead, you can come back, you could be a two-time loser just because of free will. You see, this is a finer nuance of the philosophy.
Can you say a little bit more about this point on general instruction and specific instruction?
Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not here to just dominate this scene. You're all here to enjoy the pastime. I
Yes,
just
yes.
had to make this point. I couldn't let it go by because it's a good example. There are many times when specific instructions and general instructions get confused.
Okay, so here, as stated in the Brahma Samhita, a devotee by the grace of the Lord does not become subjected to the resultant reactions of fruitive activities. You're saying that's a general
Yeah,
statement?
that's called the result of creative activities is called karma. This is a general statement that devotees don't get results of past karma after they become devotees.
Okay, yes.
But a specific thing is that they may, if they do, it's reduced.
Okay. Okay. That's a further nuance on that understanding. Oh, good. Okay, so Gandhari, are you ready to read something?
Apologies, I'm not able to read. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Arjuna, I see that you're here. Are you able to read, Prabhu? You're next in line.
I'm currently driving, so probably not a good idea.
Okay. You sound like you're from Australia too.
Yeah, I'm in New Zealand.
Okay, just a little further down under.
Yeah, just across the Harbour Bridge.
I I was noticing on a map the other day that New Zealand is a little further south of Australia.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
But,
Yeah, on a
but
clear
I
day, you can see the Great Barrier Reef from the top of the North Island, apparently.
but I don't think there's a bridge connecting you, is there? It looks like it's
No,
several
no,
thousand.
that's what you tell. That's what you tell people who know nothing about it if you want to have some fun.
Okay, I get it. All right, so let's see. Okay, you can't read right now, and everybody's read, so it's back to me, back to the top, I guess. Okay, somehow or other, um, as a result of his pious activities, King Nrga had aspired to see the Lord. He continued, "My dear Lord, I had a great desire that someday I might be able to see you personally. I think that my tendency to perform ritualistic and charitable activities, combined with this great desire to see you, has enabled me to retain the memory of who I was in my former life, even though I became a lizard." And then in brackets, such a person who remembers his past life is called Jati Smara. My dear Lord, you are the super soul seated in everyone's heart. There are many great mystic yogis who have eyes to see you through the Vedas and Upanishads. I'm going to go back to reading my book here. Uh, um, okay, in the book it says, in order to achieve the elevated position of being equal in quality with you, they always meditate on you within their hearts. Although such exalted saintly persons may see you constantly within their hearts, they still cannot see you eye to eye. Therefore, I am very much surprised that I'm able to see you personally. I know that I was engaged in so many activities, especially as a king, although I was in the midst of luxury and opulence, and was subjected to so much of the happiness and misery of material existence. I am so fortunate to be seeing you personally. As far as I know, when one becomes liberated from material existence, he can see you in this way. Rupanuga Prabhu, would you like to continue? I hope what I'm reading isn't too much different than what's on the screen.
I'm not saying anything. Okay.
Okay.
When King Nrga elected to receive the results of his impious activities, he was given the body of a lizard because of the mistake in his pious activities. Thus, he could not be directly converted to a higher status of life like a great demigod. However, along with his pious activities, he thought of Krishna. So he's quickly released from the body of a lizard and given the body of a demigod. By worshiping the Supreme Lord, those who desire material opulences are given the bodies of powerful demigods. Sometimes these demigods can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead eye to eye, but they are still not yet eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the Vaikuntha planets. However, if the demigods continue to become devotees of the Lord, the next chance they get, they will enter into the Vaikuntha planets.
I have a question about Vaikuntha planets. In the Vaikuntha planets, is the only relationship the soul can have Shantaras, or also is Dasyaras something that is expressed there as well? Because I don't. Yes, yes.
The lower half, see, they worship in awe and veneration.
Right.
They have the lower half. They can have the lower half of friendship. Arjuna was the lower half. The higher level of friendship is the Gopas, who don't see Krishna in awe and veneration. But in Vaikunthas, everything's in awe and veneration. So the service is in awe and veneration, and the lower half and friendship, the lower half is considered awe and veneration. The higher half is considered to be the Gopas.
Uh-huh. So Arjuna was, did you say, in the higher half or lower half of friendship?
His friendship was mixed with awe and veneration.
Uh-huh. Right.
We saw that in the Bhagavad Gita.
Right. Where he says, I used to sit on the bed with you and call you O Yadava, and like pals. And he was embarrassed.
Yes, yes.
And Prabhupada says that the instruction of Bhagavad Gita could only begin when Arjuna took that submissive, because friendship means equality, but when you take the role of being a student, then you can be corrected.
Right.
Divija Garanga, would you like to read?
Sure.
Whoops. Uh-oh. Where did it go? Okay, I see it on my screen. Share screen. All right, Divija, go. You can see you in this way. Okay. Vaikuntha planets was the last thing I read. Okay, having attained.
Having attained the body of a demigod, King Nrga, continuing to remember everything, said, "My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Lord and are worshipped by all the demigods. You are not one of the living entities. You are the Supreme Person, Purushottam. You are the source of all happiness to all living entities. Therefore, you are known as Govinda. You are the Lord of those living entities who have accepted material bodies and those who have not yet accepted material bodies. Among the living entities who have not accepted material bodies are those who hover in the material world as evil spirits or live in the ghostly atmosphere. However, those who live in the spiritual kingdom, the Vaikuntha Lokas, have bodies not made of material elements. You, my Lord, are infallible. You are the supreme, the purest of all living entities. You live in everyone's heart. You are the shelter of all living entities, Narayan. Being seated in the heart of all living beings, you are the supreme director of everyone's sensual activities. Therefore, you are called Rishikesh.
Okay, next in line here on the lineup. Okay, Arjuna cannot read. Gandhari cannot read. But Janamuni can read. And then after is Nandapatni.
My dear Supreme Lord Krishna, because you have given me this body of a demigod, I will have to go to some heavenly planet. So I'm taking this opportunity to beg for your mercy, that I may have the benediction of never forgetting your lotus feet, no matter to which form of life or planet I may be transferred. You are all-pervading, present everywhere as cause and effect. You are the cause of all causes, and your power is unlimited. You are the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Brahman. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. My dear Lord, your body is full of transcendental bliss and knowledge, and you are eternal. You are the master of all mystic powers. Therefore, you are known as Yogeshwar. Kindly accept me as insignificant dust at your lotus feet.
Nandapatni?
Before entering the heavenly planets, King Nrga circumambulated the Lord, touched his helmet to the Lord's lotus feet, and bowed before him. Seeing the aeroplane from the heavenly planets present before him, he was given permission by the Lord to board it. After the departure of King Nrga, Lord Krishna expressed his appreciation for the king's devotion to, to the Brahmins, as well as his charitable disposition and his performance of Vedic rituals. Therefore, it's recommended that if one cannot directly become a devotee of the Lord, one should follow the Vedic principles of life. This will enable him one day to see the Lord by being promoted either directly to the spiritual kingdom or indirectly to the heavenly kingdom, where he has hope of being transferred to the spiritual planets. I like that because, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes through this long kind of string of explanations to Arjuna, if you can't do this, do this, and if you can't do this, do this. I mean, ultimately he says, man mana bhavaman bhakto, but there's so many descriptions where Krishna gives these sort of concessions in a way.
Krishna's accepting us on the level that we're on.
Exactly. Kind of subtext, you'll get there eventually kind of thing. If you can't ultimately.
Like, don't beat yourself up. Right.
Well, we're getting close.
Janu Muni Prabhu, are you able to read the next? Getting close to the end, you mean?
I mean, we're getting close to the goal.
Oh, yeah. Well, you are. I feel I'm light years away, but Janu Muni Prabhu, are you able to read the next paragraph?
Yeah, I was just remembering that you asked me to speak with Tarika Das the other day, and I totally forgot about that. So I was writing a reminder to myself while that last paragraph was going on. But yeah, okay. I can read.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was thinking about that, but I didn't want to bug you because I know you're a busy guy. Okay. At this
time, Lord Krishna was present among his relatives who were members of the Kshatriya class. To teach them through the exemplary character of King Nrga, he said, even though a Kshatriya king may be as powerful as fire, it is not possible for him to usurp the property of a Brahmin and to utilize it for his own purpose. If this is so, how can ordinary kings, who falsely think themselves the most powerful beings within the material world, usurp a Brahmana's property? I do not think that taking poison is as dangerous as taking a Brahmana's property.
Wow.
For ordinary poison, there is treatment. One can be relieved from its effects. But if one drinks the poison of taking a Brahmana's property, there is no remedy for the mistake. The perfect example was King Nrga. He was very powerful and very pious. But due to the small mistake of unknowingly usurping a Brahmana's cow, he was condemned to the abominable life of a lizard. Ordinary poison affects only those who drink it, and ordinary fire can be extinguished simply by pouring water on it. But the Arani fire ignited by the spiritual potency of a Brahmana can burn to ashes the whole family of a person who provokes such a Brahmana. Formerly, the Brahmanas used to ignite the fire of sacrifice, not with matches or any other external fire, but with their powerful mantras called Arani. If someone even touches a Brahmana's property, he is ruined for 3 generations. However, if a Brahmana's property is forcibly taken away, the taker's family for 10 generations before him and 10 generations after will be subject to ruination. On the other hand, if someone becomes a Vaishnav or devotee of the Lord, 10 generations of his family before his birth and 10 generations after will be liberated.
Thank you. Rupa Nrga, do you have something to say about that paragraph?
No?
Okay. That reminds me of a verse from the 11th chapter of Bhagavatam. Devarshi bhutapta nrinam pitranam Nakin Kironya Municharajan. I forget the rest of it, but the word Mukunda is in there. That all of one's debts become liquidated by surrendering to Mukunda.
It just points out the complexities of this material world by engaging in any other activity besides devotional service. It's like a labyrinth of mistakes. Because we're conditioned souls, we're going to make mistakes like King Nrga did, and constantly get more and more entangled. And even though we're following Vedas, following Shastra, there's so many different stages that we have to go through before we get to devotional service. It just helps us understand how fortunate we are.
And how scary it is. Prabhupada would say Krishna consciousness is like a razor's edge. One if you're shaving, one little slip and you cut yourself.
Well, look what happens if you offend a Brahmin. Okay, suppose you offend Srila Prabhupada. You see, and so it's still risky.
There's a lot written in the 6th canto about this, and the canto devoted to Ajamil. It's amazing how much of really the whole of that particular book is on this subject. And it kind of, Prabhupada gives a lot of guidance on it. And, but he also, really emphasizes the point of, don't exploit this, that Krishna is very, very forgiving.
Second chance.
Yeah. So he goes through that with a fine-tooth comb, that whole scenario, because in fact, even, in the Bhagavad Gita, again, where Krishna emphasizes, that actually my devotee never perishes. So one might, be on the slip and slide and not perfect within this lifetime. But it seems that there's a tremendous mood in Krishna consciousness in the Shastras of reassurance, even, if one trips and stumbles and all the rest of it. So one doesn't have to be kind of self-flagellating about it, but to understand one's position that the Lord and Guru are in fact tremendously merciful, and even in one's next life one will carry on with all the credit that one has amassed within this particular lifetime. Anyway, that's my understanding so far.
And I was thinking we're getting a lot of Krishna book credits just by hearing Krishna book. We're amassing credits at this very moment. Rupa Nrga Prabhu, would you like to read the last paragraph of this pastime?
Starting the Lord Krishna continued?
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
Lord Krishna continued. If some foolish king who is puffed up by his wealth, prestige, and power wants to usurp a Brahmana's property, it should be understood that such a king is clearing his path to hell. He does not know how much he has to suffer for his unwise action. If someone takes away the property of a very liberal Brahmana who is encumbered by a large dependent family, then such a usurper is put into the hell known as Kumbhigpaka. Not only is he put into this hell, but his family members also have to accept such a miserable condition of life. A person who takes away property which has either been awarded to a Brahmana or given away by him is condemned to live at least 60,000 years as miserably as an insect in stool. Therefore, I instruct you, all my boys and relatives present here, do not, even by mistake, take the possession of a Brahmana and thereby pollute your whole family. If someone even wishes to possess such property, let alone attempts to take it away by force, the duration of his life will be reduced. He will be defeated by his enemies, and after being bereft of his royal position, when he gives up his body, he will become a serpent. A serpent gives trouble to all other living entities. My dear boys and relatives, I therefore advise you that even if a Brahmana becomes angry with you and calls you by ill names or cuts you, still you should not retaliate. On the contrary, you should smile, tolerate him, and offer your respects to the Brahmana. You know very well that even I myself offer my obeisances to the Brahmanas with great respect 3 times daily. You should therefore follow my instruction. An example, I shall not forgive anyone who does not follow them, and I shall punish him. You should learn from the example of King Nrga that even if someone unknowingly usurps the property of a Brahmana, he is put into a miserable condition of life. Thus, Lord Krishna, who is always engaged in purifying the conditioned living entities, gave instruction not only to his family members and the inhabitants of Dwarka, but to all the members of human society. After this, the Lord entered his palace. Presented the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 2nd volume, 9th chapter of Krishna, the story of King Nrga.
Does anyone have any comments or question on this amazing Leela?
I
Just
just had a comment, yeah, sorry, on the last little bit. I mean, to my mind, it just shows you how incredibly holy the Brahman is, and how Krishna is the protector and the lover of the Brahmins. But it just strikes me that, yes, they are this exceptionally holy strata of society. That's what strikes me in the last paragraph.
They are the what of society?
They're the, so pure, so holy, so holy, so revered for their extraordinary qualities. And that's why, Krishna is seen as Brahmanachaya, etc. And then when I think of the Tulsi prayer, Yani Kani Chapapani, Brahma Hat Chadi Kani Cha. So, it behooves one not to offend a Brahmin in any way. Yeah.
Familiarity breeds contempt. Also.
Do you know any Brahmins?
Do I know any Brahmins?
Do you know any Brahmins?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
Hmm.
And be careful.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, one has to, straw between the teeth and all the rest of it.
The light bulb that went on for me when you were reading this last paragraph, Prabhupada was saying here that, my dear boys and relatives, I therefore advise you that even if a Brahmin becomes angry with you and calls you by ill names or cuts you, still you should not retaliate. On the contrary, you should smile. It's a bit of a tall order here. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your insults. On the contrary, you should smile, tolerate him, and offer your respects to the Brahmana. Wow. So it occurred to me just now, just like, I learned in one course I took with Dira Govinda Prabhu, that we need to forgive others for our own sake. Because I've read in Ayurvedic books that anger afflicts the liver, and resentment or anger actually causes cancer. So similarly, I'm realizing by reading this that by remaining angry at someone because they quote unquote hurt me or were rude to me or ungrateful to me, I need to let it go. I've also heard it's somewhere in the Mahabharata that if you find fault with somebody, then you absorb their negative qualities. So it's very dangerous to not be Trinada Pisinichana. I need to be Trinada Pisinichana, to offer all respects to others without expecting any in return for my own sake and benefit. Otherwise, Krishna's not going to forgive me. And I could be born as a reptile as a result. It's not a laughing matter. That's just something that jumped out of the pages for me. But it's a tall order, isn't it? When someone is rude to you, um,
So you're speaking as a Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava should behave toward others.
yes.
But a Vaishnava would not be unnecessarily angry with another person
Good point.
or cut them. Only in self-defense would he be angry like that. You know, but I'm saying we're not talking about Vaishnavas here. We're talking about Brahmins who
Okay.
are in the mode of goodness.
Okay.
See, there's a difference in the Karma Kandya section of the Vedas has its limits. That's why Lord Chaitanya told Ramananda Roy to go beyond. That's external, he said. So all that we're reading here is the behavior of persons who are totally immersed in the Karma Kandya section and the Varnashram Dharma and how they must behave. And if they step out of if the king steps out or the Brahmin steps out of the role that they're assigned to play, then there's a severe repercussions.
So that's why Krishna says in the Gita that it's more dangerous to be discharging someone else's duty than to be doing your own, even if there's flaws. Is that the understanding? Is that the connection?
Well, that's especially referring to Varna. You know, and one is a Vaishya or Sudra, he tries to do the duties practice of a Brahmin. Well, see, he's even if he does it perfectly, Krishna says, he gets through a simple reaction.
I've never fully understood that. Why sinful?
Why? Because he does it perfectly? It's still sinful because he does it perfectly. Because he's out of line, because, you know, he's supposed to do it. He's supposed to be in another psychophysical nature practice. He steps out for some reason, some ambitious reason or some other reason.
Uh-huh.
And he tries to do some duty of someone else. I mean, that's what this whole modern society is. Everybody's imitating kings and holy men and so on, so on, so on. It's all a perverted reflection. That's why Shubha says they're all mudhas.
Yeah, they're sudras, he says.
Yes. Yeah. They're acting as if they're Kshatriyas. They're acting as if they're Brahmins. They're acting as if they're Vaishyas. And even some acting as Sudra, less than Sudras are acting like the Sudra. So the whole thing is completely topsy-turvy. That's why it's so difficult to get Varnashram and reinstated. You see, so our preaching is basically chant the holy name and read Srila Prabhupada's books.
Janamuni Prabhu, anything jump out for you from this chapter, or any what we've heard from Prabhupada in the purport or comments?
Two things is one, I keep reptiles. I keep different lizards and things. I was thinking, man, I wonder who some of these are. But the other one is that the very last paragraph, you know, Krishna said, I offer my obeisances to the Brahmanas 3 times a day, or I remember them or something. And that just made me think of the last verse of the Samsara prayers with the Jayan Sri Sanjam.
Yeah.
And because, you know, we don't have Brahmanas in the world really now, you know, in our microcosm of ISKCON we do, but day to day, you know, I don't meet any Brahmanas. And so why would I mentally offer my obeisances? It's an extinct part of the world culture. But the guru, who is also inherently a Brahmana, you know, we're still instructed to offer our respects 3 times a day. So, you know, we're also following Krishna's example.
Mm-hmm. That's why Prabhupada created ISKCON for us, so we could have that microclimate. Mata Gandhari, I'm so happy you could join us. It's the first time. Any thoughts from you on what we've read?
Thank you for asking. Yes, something where you mentioned that it's mentioned in Ayurveda. Similarly, in Chaitanya Siksamrita, it's mentioned that the Goswamis have hidden so many truth within different Puranas, like, including Ayurveda. So there's one thing about, we just read some here previously about one loses one's life here. So in Ayurveda, it's so nicely, Manu Samhita, it's so nicely described that when a senior devotee walks in a room and a person doesn't stand up, he loses his life, part of his life. And the way it's described is that the aura of senior devotee is much bigger, so it pulls onto the aura of a younger person who is committing an offense by not standing up. But just simply by standing up, he regains his life here, which means then he can pull back on his own aura when he stands up. So this is scientifically described in that. So, it's so important for Vaishnavas that we can study thoroughly, and the answers are all there. And it's just mind-boggling. Like when I read Chaitanya Siksamrita, that comes with different colors at different yugas, and also that's where it's mentioned about the 6 Goswami hiding certain truths in different places. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada told Pradyumna that he wanted him to translate the Chaitanya Shikshamrita and I believe Driva Dharma.
I think Banu Swami is already, might have done Jaiva Dharma or someone else. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Who was it? Was it Ramaharshan Sutta? He would not offer obeisances, and so Lord Balaram killed him with
to Balaram.
He would not honor him, right? And similarly, Daksha got very angry at his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, for not honoring him, right? And thus Daksha's sacrifice ensued. Arjuna Prabhu, any thoughts from you after hearing the reading? I know you've been driving all over New Zealand.
No, I'm just enjoying hearing. I plus had a phone call, so I missed a bit.
Okay, Dvija Garanga Prabhu, anything from you?
Oh, just, I guess, mirroring what other devotees have said, the contrast between the rigidity and the elaborate details of how the material world functions, and just one slip, even if someone so powerful and so expert, has such repercussions that it's like, is it really a realm in which, knowing that, I want to enter and try and be successful? It's kind of discouraging, downright fearful. And I don't like to, who wants to live in fear? I mean, we have plenty of experience of being fearful, and no one relishes their life to be ruled by fear or anger, all of these different qualities. But when you're entering these things, this kind of world ruled in this way, it creates the necessity of dealing with those dynamics, and it's not particularly encouraging.
You remind me of a lecture of Srila Prabhupada entitled "Many a Slip Twixt the Cup and the Lip."
Shakespeare. Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare said that?
Yeah, I think it's Shakespeare. Mm-hmm.
I believe so.
Yeah. Also, Srila Prabhupada, many places in his different books, he uses the metaphor of the tree, and the beauty of the tree, how it's so merciful and so tolerant, and so beneficial, and that we should try and think of that metaphor, and so that we can withstand the slings and arrows. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful metaphor. Yeah.
And if one enters into the realm of karma kandya, they're going to have plenty of opportunity to practice that. See, but we take shelter in Srila Prabhupada's Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And by doing that, whatever we did in the past, we can escape all prior desires for promotion to heavenly planets and to be wealthy and beautiful and so many things. We can put that aside because we helped Srila Prabhupada to spread his movement.
Mhm.
We escape all of these repercussions. We may have done them already in the past life, but we don't have to do them again because we get the message of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that actually it's more important to me than you worship my pure devotee.
It's a very generous and amazing, wonderful world. The house in which the whole world can live. It's not a strict place of horrific fears and
Prabhupada's house, you mean?
yeah.
One
The
godbrother
spiritual
said to
world.
me, one godbrother said to me, Prabhupada may have built a house the whole world can live in, but it's a good thing there's a lot of rooms in that house because you wouldn't always want to be in the same room with some of the others.
Now, where's your tolerance as a tree, Gaura?
No, I'm just repeating what another godbrother said. I thought I never looked at it that way before.
It does take this tremendous humility and tolerance because, you know, devotees can be all over the place with one another. So, you know, to my mind, I think that the metaphors that Prabhupada gives for us to focus on, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this, of course, in Sri Shastakam. So yeah, they're kind of like slogans that you can lean into, and it's very helpful when you run into situations so that you know how you can steady yourself.
Kirtaniya Sadahari.
Yeah,
As long as we're not sorry.
It's a practice.
Yeah. As long as I'm looking for some honor, as long as I'm intolerant of others, then I cannot Kirtaniya Sadahari, because there's something more important than chanting the holy name, and that is to get the honor, to get the respect, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the vision that comes to mind is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu holding Haridas Thakur in his arms. You know, it's this incredible image of the power of, you know, chanting the holy name as your complete and utter refuge.
Any final thoughts from you, Rupanuga Prabhu?
No?
Okay, so on Friday we'll resume going back to the Sri Upadeshamrita, and the verse will be that the holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy, although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet. It's wonderful that simply by carefully chanting the sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. So that's what we have.
Which verse is that?
That's text number 7.
No, it takes it.
Yeah, that's like
I think that I just might make one small comment that
Yeah.
I noticed that this reading is more in line with what Srila Prabhupada called Ishtagoshti.
Uh-huh.
And Ishtagoshti, he described when you devotees read the Shastra together, that new lights will come out.
Mm-hmm.
That was the purpose of the Ishtagoshti, was not simply parroting thing, but and everyone having experience, more spiritual enlightenment, new lights.
Yeah.
How often would Srila Prabhupada hold Ishtagoshti discussions amongst the devotees? Once a month?
No, he didn't. He didn't hold them. He told us to hold them.
And how often?
Well, the few that I attended, that got started, it sort of like petered out and went away. But it would turn into more gripe sessions than new lights coming out. Like we should do this, we should do it, because we're all just learning how to behave, with each other and our duties. So it was more like how we can improve our service to Srila Prabhupada came up more than anything else. See, we were so wet behind the ears, we're still getting adjusted to our obligations to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. He had us, whenever we saw each other, the first time we saw each other in the day, whenever you first saw another devotee, you would say, Jai, Hari Bol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and pay your respects. You pay obeisances.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Please accept my humble obeisance, Prabhu. And he wanted us to call each other Prabhu. He said, Prabhu means master. You see, so always offer respect to one another. Because he wanted us to work together. You see, we had to work together.
I've often thought that this term cooperation almost seems impossible. I mean, it's a simple word, but there's so much to that. Cooperation is a two-way street. Otherwise, I mean, because some people, I remember seeing a bumper sticker when I lived in America. It said, I'm a very cooperative person. As long as you do things the way I want them done, we'll get along very easily together.
Yeah, goes back to the humility and respect. Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Rupa Nrga Prabhupada set up a system. We had a temple president, and I don't ever remember wanting to argue with the temple president. At least not in my early formative years of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada did say the best kind of leadership is spiritual dictatorship, as long as the leader is a pure devotee.
Yeah, the difficulty always comes up when whoever that leader is, whatever his position is, has difficulty being a transparent medium for Srila Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm.
When that enters into the relationship, it always is a problem. You see, to be a transparent via media is how the disciplic session works. And the etiquette you're describing, how you respect the temple president, is part of that. But the person that receives the etiquette, that receives the deference, should actually deserve it. Has to really rate that position. You see, and that's, as was just explained, that requires humility. And to my mind, humility is a real opulence of the conditioned soul. It's the only opulence he really has, is to be humble. He doesn't have anything else. He has faith and he has humility.
That quality of humility doesn't seem to be so greatly revered in our Western culture, or lack of culture. It's a sign of weakness. It's seen by some people as a weakness.
Yes, but it's so powerful when and if you are actually around somebody that has it genuinely. I mean, it's the most extraordinary thing, and it kind of permeates the atmosphere. You think, okay, now this person's actually kind of the genuine article, and it's very obvious the difference between that and where, the respect is not earned because actually the person's kind of just wearing masks or taking a position, or it's mixed with something that's not quite right. But I think, most people, as they mature, can come to discern, what deserves respect and how that respect is earned by the person that you're looking at.
It's the difference between demanding respect and commanding respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and a humble person obviously is never going to command it. So yeah, I mean, it's a rare thing. And if you find it, gosh, you go chasing after the dust of that.
I think you meant that a humble person will never demand respect. You said command respect, but he'll never demand respect. But he'll
He'll
command.
command it. Doesn't mean demanding is one thing, but commanding is voluntary. You're commanding another person's respect means that you're so respectable that they feel obligated to respect you. You're not
Like-
demanding respect like some politician or some king or something, you know, or
Yes, go on. Sorry.
some anybody, you know, and even some devotee, but demand respect. So no, that's not what respect is. Respect is that it's automatically perceived, and that's the command. You know, that's the command.
It's
That's-
earned. Yeah, it's earned by the person's qualities, which don't have to be spelled out. They're kind of innate and they're attractive. Yeah. Anyway.
Shabbat said that Vaidnava was first of all a gentleman.
Yes, I love that. Mhm.
And a
Like him, I mean, gosh, you know, anyone who saw him, even a policeman on the other side of the street, you know, when Prabhupada was walking in London, you know, with his head in the air, but this incredible humility. They're like, who is that? Who is that? Yeah, wonderful.
And he said a gentleman is someone who, if he gives his word, he keeps it.
I remember reading the book compiled by Mullapakriti about all the people that knew Prabhupada when he was in Vrindavan before he came to the West. And it just reduced me to tears because, you know, these descriptions of just how genuine and humble and incredible Prabhupada was, you know, riding around on his cronky bicycle and, you know, just accepting a few chapatis and busy translating, just the genuine Vaishnava, you know, no bells and whistles, just the genuine thing. And all these people that remembered him, they just remembered him in this amazing mood of respect and affection, even if they didn't have big interactions. It's just how they registered, you know, that he was so special and so humble, actually. I mean, that's the amazing thing about reading those descriptions of Prabhupada. Yeah, just fantastic. If you haven't read those descriptions, they're really they really open the heart, you know. Anyway.
So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll resume this Friday, same time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm very grateful when you come. Sometimes a whole bunch of people bail out. Other times a whole bunch show up. It's a little unpredictable, but I'll read anyway. But I really appreciate it when everyone's here. It takes on a whole new life in hearing these books. When, as Rupanuga Prabhu was reminding us, different lights come on, different perspectives are shared by the devotees. Oh no, Nitya Leela, all the way from Pakistan, is just coming at the very
Leela.
Rupanuga Prabhu, I'm not sure if you've met Nitya Leela before. She and her brothers have been pioneering Krishna consciousness in Karachi, Pakistan. Her family managed to get a 10,000 rupee, is it 10,000 rupee donation, Nitya Leela, to print Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in Urdu and the Sindh languages. She's a doctor, a full-on MD, and she's dodged the jabs in every circumstance, even though she's under constant pressure. And Prabhupada said that we must take the dust from the feet of the devotees in Pakistan. Do you have any words of encouragement to give her regarding Prabhupada's desire to see us preach in the Muslim countries?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Actually, constant encouragement comes from the Vaishnavas and this Sangha. I was missing this Zoom sessions these Zoom sessions, and because I was traveling, so I wasn't able to make it, but I'll be regular now.
That's great to hear. Rupanuga Prabhu, in your service as a GBC and the various managerial roles you've taken, I know that Brahmananda and Gargamuni, they were sent to Pakistan. Do you remember that time?
Yeah, it was very dangerous. And actually, Brahmananda was missing. He was not, somehow none of the communications weren't going on between Shubhava and Brahmananda. He became very concerned. So he sent Gargamuni. I understand the story. He was sent Gargamuni to find him.
And Pushta Krishna went as an assistant too.
I don't know the details.
Yeah. And Prabhupada was so relieved when he finally got them back. I think he was even crying because there was some report that some Americans in Pakistan
Yes, he had been injured, and he thought maybe that was Brahmananda, and so I think that's what the reason Shubhava sent Gargamuni, because he heard this, was concerned.
Yeah. Nitya Leela, I would highly recommend, our Rupanuga Prabhu, he's the age of Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada departed, he's at 82 right now. You used to organize a lot of speaking programs. How many ISKCON temples are there in Pakistan? 10?
Yeah, it's 10 recently, but more projects are in pipeline.
More in the pipeline. And then you said also Kirtanananda has even more than 10 temples in Pakistan?
Yeah, yes.
So could you please organize, if Rupanuga Prabhu is interested, could you organize some talks for him to speak to the Pakistan community? I mean, he's going back to 1966, just a few months after Prabhupada got off the boat.
Wonderful.
No.
It will be really incredible opportunity for us to hear him. Yeah.
Take advantage while you can.
Yeah, Krishna willing. Yes.
Would that be something you'd be interested in doing, is a Zoom to speak to the Pakistan community of devotees, Rupanuga Prabhu?
I really don't know what I could say to them that would be worthy, but I could try to answer any questions that I have.
Sure.
I'm not a scholar, and I don't speak their language, but if they have any questions about the movement or the philosophy or something like that, I might be able to.
Nitya Leela can be your translator.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm thinking that for intellectual class, for emerging minds or professional kind of people, it will be beneficial.
Well, I mean, look, there's a GBC for that place. There are gurus for that place, and they have authorities. And I could be a confusing person if I say something different from the authorities there. For the new devotees, especially with my guru godbrothers, I might say something different, or it might be something different than the local GBC. So I don't like to get involved with, differences of opinion with persons who are in charge of other places.
But if Nitya Leela wants to do something personally, because she was in a little bit of, I don't know if I can say Nitya Leela, fear, or you had some reticence, so that, because Gopal Krishna Maharaj, some of his followers were telling you that you can't do anything without their approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, but slowly we are changing the trends. Now
Good.
we are taking our own initiatives and we just have to submit reports. So now the change is transforming. I mean, that's because of our courageous steps. Otherwise, it was like, oh, you have to take approvals and you have to be in line. But now it's like you just have to give the reports,
Right.
Krishna, because of Krishna's favor, it's now being changing.
I was just thinking that if Rupanuga Prabhu, if you explained that Rupanuga Prabhu is not taking any official GBC position, the answers that he's giving to your questions are just his personal realizations. They may or may not be directly in line of local guru, GBC, etc., etc. How does that sound? Disclaimer. He's just giving his personal realization. It may or may not be in line with their local authority. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, there is no problem.
Good.
Yeah, as far as the messages from Srila Prabhupada's teaching, then there is no problem at all.
I mean, for the more than 10 Kirtanananda temples there, Rupanuga Prabhu was there right beside him. They were there at 26 Second Avenue. I mean, Rupanuga was a family man, Grahasta. He was working every day. Was it as a social worker at that time, Rupanuga?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So he has full experience what it means to be a responsible Grahasta and at the same time absorbed in hearing from Srila Prabhupada.
Exactly.
So he's a valuable asset because I think the majority of your community is all Grahastas, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So we just need to find right now. What is it? It's now almost 9:30 p.m. for us Eastern Standard Time. It must be about what 5:30 in the morning. 5:30 in the morning for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's 7. It's 7 p.m. Oh, sorry, it's 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just have to find a time that works for us and works for you. Just keep in touch with me, and we'll try to line up a time that works for Rupanuga Prabhu, if he wants to do it. I don't want him to ask. I don't want to ask him to do anything that he does not want to do. But he's offered just to do a question and answer. You can tell people ahead of time if you have some questions.
That would be better.
Yeah.
That would be
jot
better.
down. Sorry.
That would be better to have it, some questions prearranged.
Yeah. In other words, people should be coming with their questions, not that they're coming expecting him to give a specific discourse on a specific topic. The topic is their questions.
Wonderful. It is more, I think, beneficial actually. Questions are in mind, and those would be answered. This is great transformation and great exchange it's gonna be. Yeah.
And Arjuna Prabhu out there in New Zealand, we can do the same for your community. We're very fortunate to still have Rupanuga with us. I mean, one of the very few from 26 Second Avenue. I mean, Brahmananda Prabhu is gone, Kirtanananda is gone. We still have a Chutananda. We have a Rupanuga Prabhu. Not Madhusudan Prabhu. You know, he departed. And also, Mata Gandhari, if you have something, if you have a community there in India, I think you're like connected with many, many devotees. You're a real networker. So, if you'd like to do a question and answer session, then perhaps Rupanuga might like to assist with that.
Yeah, that could be cool. Eh?
Sure, thank you very much. I'm mostly with non-devotees who are so interested in ancient teachings. So I have many groups with a couple hundred each.
Wow.
Where's that?
Wonderful.
Well, my groups are online, Telegram, and you know, right now I'm talking on Vedic cosmology and planetary system. And I have a group called Ascension. So we share different methods of ascension, which requires, I've actually done many classes and there are recordings on that regarding our daily life, you know. It's all part of ascension, morning program, aarti, meditation, chanting. So they love it. And they ask me to sing, you know, bhajans when I go on in their groups. They have about 6,000 people in their group, some of them. And they asked me to sing. So I'm telling you, Rupanuga Prabhu, this is the time which you are waiting for, that humanity is waking up and they are fed up of the atrocities from the governments. And so they want to hear the truth. And every channel I go to, they said, we have to look to the East for the answers. And I said, be very careful, because 4 generations are MK Ultra, means for them, West is best. Even at the Harinam here, we have 2-3 times in a day. You see the Indians coming to see the Gaura people, and they are wearing suit, boot, tie, and holding their mobile phones, whereas the Western devotees from 10 different countries are chanting with tilak and dhoti kurtas. So they are.
I don't really think I have anything to really add to that.
Well, I was thinking about the perfection at home, Rupanuga. We never really did a session on that, but it sounds like that style of preaching, because that was from a 1940 something or 50 something BTG, Perfection at Home, Prabhupada.
Well, that was an unpublished essay. He also spoke about it later. And my humble opinion is that given the present world circumstances, practice at home is something that we should be teaching others, because the organization is going in different directions. And they're, for example, supporting the inoculations in many places. That has great implications for the direction which ISKCON's going. And I mean, I'm very much attuned to that. And I'm not so sure whether that is something that will add to a very nice program that's already going on somewhere. See, I'm very concerned primarily with how the movement is presenting itself now in this present time. And I'm very concerned about how the philosophy is applied, how Srila Prabhupada's teachings and the books are applied in society, how they're applied in the present time. You see, there's a real way to make Srila Prabhupada's teachings very much applicable at the modern time. He calls them all out. He calls everybody, all the leaders all over the world. They're all mudhas, he said. And we need purified leadership, he said. So I mean, Srila Prabhupada was very critical about the present world situation, the leadership, the academics, teachings, and everything. So I kind of like indulge in that side of Srila Prabhupada. I don't give credit to persons who are claiming to be teachers or leaders and so on. And even within ISKCON, I find it I find it criminal to cajole devotees or to in some way intimidate devotees through authority to take these inoculations, because some of the most recent findings about the contents of these inoculations are horrendous. The short-term and long-term effects, especially the long-term effects, are heavily documented by respectable scientists and physicians and unknown to the general public. I mean, it's, as I've explained in my essay, it's a Rakshasa rollout. And they're simply acting as the serving mechanisms for the karma people have coming for the killing fields. I mean, after centuries of killing helpless animals, cows and bulls, but millions and millions of other animals, billions of sea creatures and land creatures, how can we expect to have peace and prosperity in this world?
They say approximately 100 billion animals are killed every year in slaughterhouses. 100.
That's probably a very conservative number.
What to speak of human abortions as well.
So, I mean, this material world is now undergoing an epic rollout,
karmic rollout.
It's a reaction Mother Nature's bringing, overdue, I believe, for so much sinful activity, and it's something that cannot be avoided. And we have to preach in these circumstances, and it's worldwide. It's not, no one is exempt. Just like if 8 people are equally responsible for the killing of 1 cow. the person who kills it, all the way down to the person who eats it, cooks it. All these 8 people are equally responsible. So that implies that practically the whole population of the United States, even the innocent child who doesn't know. So I mean, it's just the sinful world. It's so overwhelming, the amount, the immorality, and the morale of people, of the saner section of people. Their morale is being reduced and reduced. And that saner section, there are customers. There's Krishna, there's the devotee, there's the innocent, and there's the atheist. And that innocent non-devotee, those are our customers.
Mm-hmm.
I call them the saner section of the people. And how to reach them in this time, how to explain to them what's going on and why it's going on. Why are these people, these leaders, these various countries are in charge? How they get like that? And how Krishna sanctions these things. And what's the meaning of free will when all this is going on? These are deep philosophical questions for me. And this is what I talk about. The meaning of free will, how it is that Krishna is sanctioning all this horrific activity going on, the child trafficking, the pedophilia, all these things are going on in Krishna's kingdom. We're part of the kingdom of God. If we're just a part of the kingdom of God where there's forgetfulness of all, just like Shubham gives example, in your finger, you have a nail, and you cut the nail, there's no feeling. And this part of the kingdom of God is a place where there's no feeling for Krishna, although it's part of his kingdom, just like the fingernail is part of the finger. So this is a very dark place right now. And yet, it's the golden age, 500 years, the year 536 Garubda. 536 years of the golden age have passed already. So these things are happening at the golden age, and yet the Rakshasas are in such control. How do we behave? How do we see this? How do we understand Krishna's plan? How do we keep our faith in this process? These are questions. These are internal questions, not external questions of which country I'm in or what language I speak or whether I'm male or whether I'm female. Those are externals. Varnashrami, external. This is internal questions for a devotee to introspect about. It's a trying, like one patriot, American patriot said once during the American Revolution, these are the times that try men's souls. These are the times that try men's souls. And we're in that time. And out of compassion, we have to understand how we preach at this time.
Mm-hmm.
How we help other conditioned souls, because that's what the duty is of a disciple, to help the other conditioned souls. He's conditioned, doesn't mean he can't help other conditioned souls because he's got Srila Prabhupada's blessings and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't need anybody else's blessings. He doesn't need anybody else's knowledge. He's got everything. In his books, everything's there. In his lectures, somehow or another, everyone could speak English. They could hear Srila Prabhupada speaking in English like he does in all of his lectures, and they would have direct association right on the spot with Srila Prabhupada. No questions about it, nothing edited, nothing. It's Srila Prabhupada and me, that's it. That's the way it was in the storefront. Srila Prabhupada sitting up on a dais, just like it was a throne. He was our worshipable deity. We had no deities, we had no books, nothing. We just had Srila Prabhupada speaking. And his sound, the ring of truth persuaded us. This ring of truth has to be heard everywhere. Srila Prabhupada has to become the world acharya. People have to understand that he's greater than Gandhi, that he's greater than Marx, that he's greater than Einstein, that he's greater than Shakespeare. He's the world icon. He's the world acharya. We have to preach this. This is non-sectarian. It has nothing to do with where we're born, what our race is, what our gender is, nothing. This is the absolute truth. This is the internal purpose of our life. The eternal internal purpose. So that's the way, I mean, I'm a troublemaker, okay? Because I know what the trouble is. I know what the trouble is. And I point it out. That's all. So if you want somebody like me to speak anywhere, I'll do it with my, disclaimer. I will not be responsible for the responses.
Well, Rupanuga Prabhu, to reveal your anxiety, I've been studying this whole scenario for last 2.5 years, and you'll be very happy to know whether you believe me or not, but I have a lot of evidence that all the world governments are coming down. Big peoples are arrested, and there's 500,000 indictments. So I've been asking my friends, devotee friends, where are the Kshatriyas? The governments are going to be 10% of what they are now, and they'll be ruled by the countries will be ruled by the local people. It will be like going back to living on the land. New technologies are coming, which are based on ancient technologies of sound, frequency, vibration, color, like that. So we just round the corner, and I have all this proof, which I've been sharing with devotees. So honestly, you can be happy to hear this, that we are just around the corner and the golden age is coming full force, getting rid of all the demons. Somebody's empowered to do that. So I can share. There's a group called Global Proof. I put down just basic, simple information so people can see. Right now, our financial system is changing all over the world. It's going to be gold-backed currency. So that's just the basic stuff I can give you. And all the banks are taken down, so individual will be in charge of their own accounts. All the money they have paid in the taxes is all coming back, and there's going to be unlimited abundance. After that, the money will go because there won't be any need for money. So all this is laid out, and it is happening as we speak.
Yes, so the question is, who's behind it? I say, Srila Prabhupada said, who's behind it? The Rakshasas are in charge. They're in control of society. So anything that rolls out has to be understood from that point of view. Until the golden age actually becomes prominent, until it's understood, that internal reaction. The fact of the matter is, the whole planet is controlled and operated by the Rakshasas and their minions, the demons. They're in control. And everything they roll out is to be suspect, because they're not for the good of the people. They are cannibals. They eat their own sons, and they eat the sons of others when they run out of their own. See, they're behind all the degradation. See? They're behind all the violence, all the war, and all the disease. They're behind it all, because it's their program. They have a license. They're sanctioned by the Supreme Lord himself to be Rakshasas in this age. And they're overstepping their bounds by their own free will, because they're interfering with the golden age. So it's up to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to make the change. They're not going to make any change for the good. Nothing they do is for the good. Whether it's banking, whether it's military, whether it's academic, whether it's medical, it doesn't matter. It's all part of the Rakshasa matrix. It's all part of their program, because they're in charge. And anyone who thinks a big international rollout of anything is outside of their charge doesn't understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So the only solution is Harinam and Srila Prabhupada's books and lectures to keep us steady and sane in this crazy world. And we have to learn how to preach to people who are beyond conceptualizing. They're in such pain. They have to understand where it comes from. It comes from Darwinism. It comes from you're born to die. It comes from this is the only life you know. It comes from the idea that at the time of death, you're finished forever. That's driving people to more extreme attempts at sense gratification, to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we will die. We will die. They don't know that Srila Prabhupada's teaching us how to make this the last death. This is the way I preach. If you want to hear it in your country, I'll be glad to be there. But I'm not going to mince any words. I believe we all have to be transparent mediums for Srila Prabhupada. Whatever he said is infallible, and it goes for the modern times.
Nityalila, what is the greatest challenge that you feel you're facing in trying to share Krishna consciousness in Pakistan?
Yeah, I would say that evolution is progressive over the past 5 to 10 years. But one thing which we are still striving is to bring Vaishnavas from Western countries or from India to here locally. So as it is, teachings could be followed. I mean, we need more trained Vaishnavas to come here, and that really boosts morale and encourage newer devotees or intellectual minds. And that is missing because of security issues. Not frequently many sadhus are able to come over here.
More association is what you're saying you require. More.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I believe that if you can conquer this problem if you take Srila Prabhupada's English lectures and translate them as he speaks.
Yeah.
That association and sound is so purifying. One time, some young Bengali girls were getting ready to leave a lecture that Srila Prabhupada was giving, and he said, no, sit down, let them sit down. The sound of Krishna consciousness will be good for them. They don't have to understand the language, right? Srila Prabhupada was speaking English.
Huh.
These Bengali girls couldn't understand a syllable. So they were going to get up to go. They were 10 or 11 years old, they're young girls. No, you stay. Just the sound, this Krishna consciousness sound is good for you. Didn't matter what language. So if you listen and your friends, you listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures in English and then have you someone translate them on the spot. They will have the advantage of hearing, being in Srila Prabhupada's presence.
Nice.
That is so purifying. I've said this 1,000 times. Hearing his lectures is no different than when I sat in front of him in the storefront. If I close my eyes when I listen to a lecture on my CD player, it's no different than when I sat in front of him at 26 Second Avenue every morning for Bhagavatam class, 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for Gita class.
You did that for 2 years.
I know there's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what language people speak, where they live, they can associate with Srila Prabhupada directly in sound. And if somebody translates the sounds that are coming from Srila Prabhupada as they come out and speak and translate it properly, it's that association. Not only in the translated books, assuming they're all translated properly, but just being with Srila Prabhupada is so purifying. Just to hear the voice, speaking whatever language, it's so purifying. Being in the presence of a pure devotee is just, it's so absolutely purifying. Of all past sinful activities, of the intelligence becomes purified. The mind becomes peaceful. But that's the problem. Associating with Srila Prabhupada, that's the thing, either in books or in sound. He said, hearing is a better, he said, hearing has better effect than reading. There's something additional to reading when you hear from Srila Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both good, but there's a special additional feeling in that sound because his Srila Prabhupada is no different than that sound. He's no different than his book, but he's no different. There's something sound added to the reading. Can imagine this is something additional. So I say that the real problem is devotees, wherever they are, has to have more direct association with Srila Prabhupada. It's an internal matter. It's not external. It's internal. It's not the form. It's the substance. It's pure substance. Does that make sense? Does it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of translating lectures of Srila Prabhupada in local language. That will be something, very important, which haven't been done previously, because we always give lecture in local language, and that somehow filters the message or concept. So that is another strategy, definitely.
It's a matter of purification, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sitting on the stage and you play Srila Prabhupada for, say, 30 seconds, however long you can remember what he said, and then you repeat what he said in your language.
Mm-hmm.
See? You'll be just repeating what he said in your best words. So nothing's lost. But the addition is that Srila Prabhupada is present and you're at his lotus feet and you're just repeating what he says in your language. It's just as if you're sitting right there and you're sitting at his lotus feet and you're just repeating what he says in your language.
You're also helping to get them in the habit of hearing from Prabhupada, because sometimes in the beginning there's a little bit of an accent people need to get used to, but if they just keep hearing and hearing and hearing, then they'll be able to hear directly from Prabhupada themselves.
Yeah, those people in your place, some of them speak English, right? So those people who speak English, they should absolutely be immediately listening to Srila Prabhupada every day. It will affect the way they preach in their language. It will affect the way they explain things in their language to others who cannot understand English. If they listen themselves to anybody, and you know, who speaks English should hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures. They'd be so fortunate. And then they would be able to convey the meaning, the essence, the substance to others. So you want to know how to purify your yatra. You want to know how to purify the devotees. I don't care who their spiritual master is. I don't care who the GBC is. I'm talking Srila Prabhupada direct. He's the founder of Acharya. He's the world Acharya. Everybody can have a direct relationship with him.
What do you think, Rupa Nuga, if someone says, no, you can't go to Prabhupada unless you go through me?
Then what's the point of distributing his books? What's the point in listening to his lectures if you have to go to through somebody else to understand them? You have to go through somebody else to understand the books you read? The books are written for you. The books are written for people. Everybody. So they're written so they can be understood. That's what purports mean. You've got Krishna, and then you got his pure devotee on one page. You got what Krishna says, and then you have the perfect explanation of what he means. Well, how can anybody want anything more?
And Prabhupada is synthesized, like in the Bhagavatam, I believe it's a dozen great acharyas. He synthesized
Yes. The whole parampara is in Srila Prabhupada's books. And I was going over Srila Prabhupada, jumping over to previous acharyas is a waste of time because he presents the essence of all the previous acharyas in his purports. Everything's in his books. He said it. Everything's in these books. There's no need for outside instruction. It's all there. What's needed is faith and patience and confidence and humility. So he called it, what do you call it? Submissive oral reception. That's required. That's the key to entering into the parampara, is through Srila Prabhupada's mercy, by being submissive, orally receptive to what he says, because he's speaking for the whole parampara all the way back to Lord Brahma. And he even gave us a Brahma Samhita. We can read Lord Brahma direct. His Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, translated that for us into English. I mean, we have everything. We have everything on a silver platter. All we've got to do is appreciate it and share it. Just like there's a big popular word, on the net, share. Well, let's share Srila Prabhupada. Let's share Srila Prabhupada's teachings. That's what preaching is. It means to share Srila Prabhupada with other conditioned souls. That's all preaching means.
Share to care. We show our caring by sharing. Prabhupada.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, see what you've done? You've allowed me to get away with it again. You see, we had a reading for a different reason, and you got me started.
I don't think anybody's complaining. Is anybody complaining?
Well, they all probably left already. You see, it's getting late.
No. Gandhari's here. Arjuna. Any thoughts from you, Arjuna Prabhu, out there in New Zealand? You're listening?
See, he's gone.
Yeah, I'm only half listening. I'm in the middle of collecting quotes for a job and stuff. But yeah, it's nice to hear from a Prabhupada disciple who's been there early on. I'm thinking more and more of the need to do something independent. Actually, Urmila gave me this advice a few years ago. She said, anyone who's doing anything inspiring is either themselves the temple president or they're just doing something grassroots. In other words, don't wait for the local management to, don't try to, what's the word? Petition the temple management to do anything different from what they're currently doing. Just do your own thing and get stuck in, figure out what it is and do it. So I'm in Auckland, I think, with the vaccine mandates, the devotees not being able to go to the temple. So we just started doing our own little programs at people's houses and stuff. And it's quite a nice mood. And I'm thinking we need to just we were joking actually because we live in West Auckland. So we we're thinking we should call it Krishna West Auckland. I don't know, hire a hall or we own it. We own a 10-acre property. Maybe we can get some money together and build a barn, and host programs there or something.
You know what? You are actually the forefront, because the next stage in the movement, in my opinion, is perfection at home. You don't need an organization to reach perfection at home. Srila Prabhupada was talking about perfection at home back in '67. And again, in teachings to Kurma Brahman and Chaitanya Chaitamrita, he talks about Kurma Brahman having a perfection at home program, even though he wanted to go with Lord Chaitanya. And Srila Prabhupada talks about that, the purport. This is our movement. This is our propaganda. So people have to learn how to take, he said, we want them, not that everyone has to join the society. We want them to take the idea home and introduce in their private life. He said, this is not churchianity. You come once a week and then again the next week. So the next step in the movement, in my opinion, is not an organizational elaboration, but people understanding that this movement's intended for them personally to have in their home. All these people that took books, what do they do with them? They took them home. They got these deities in their home.
Every town and village.
They just need a picture of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva in their home, Srila Prabhupada said, then they'll be worshiping the Supreme Lord. This is such a simple program. It gets over complicated with so much bureaucracy and centralization of authority and this title and that title. Too much form and not enough substance. So what you're talking about is substance. You're talking about substance. Let people learn how to take this into their personal life, their private life, because it's all about self-realization and God realization for the individual. We can have congregational chanting, but it's got to be self-realization for everybody on their own. But the 10 offenses apply to japa, not the kirtans.
Hmm.
The japa, that's the link. Chanting without offense. Those 10 offenses are the link. That's the link between the external and internal. You see, we throw off the external and just go internal. And that is, I mean, the way Srila Prabhupada describes what it means to be offensive by being inattentive to the holy name. It's such a wonderful explanation. He says, you can chant, but you have to hear also. And that way the mind is interlocked. And further chanting is in samadhi. So inattention while chanting is extremely important aparad to avoid, which is most difficult. It may be the mother of all the other offenses.
Yeah.
So it's so important, just the 10 offenses, to study the 10 offenses. That's such a realization process. Yeah, he says the offense for chanting to the faithless. What is that example that Srila Prabhupada gave in that lecture in 1970 in LA when he talked about the 10 offenses? He said, a spiritual master who initiates a person who has not proved faithful is committing an offense because that person may go away or will go away. And how do you know a person's faithful? They got to chant 16 rounds for 6 months. They got to follow the four principles for 6 months. That will demonstrate they have faith in the holy name, Harinam, and they can get initiated. If they don't go through that process, the faith is unproven. And anyone who initiates a person who hasn't proven their faith is himself committing an offense. That's the example he gives for preaching to the faithless. In other words, a person who doesn't do 16 rounds for 6 months and chant and follow the 42 principles is still faithless. It shouldn't be initiated. That's basic stuff. He wrote me a letter. If a person falls down after first initiation, you shouldn't be given second.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, he said we were very lenient, and now we must become more strict. Now we must boil the milk. He said to GBC, let the new devotees make the devotees. We have to take care of the men we've got. And I hate to say it, but if GBC's got no business telling anybody to take the jab, that's not taking care of the men we got. I'm sorry, that's not taking care of the men we got. As a GBC man, I would never have told anyone without investigating completely what's in those jabs. What are the contents of those jabs? You cannot tell someone in your charge, your dependents, to do something that's risky.
They won't say that they're telling. They'll say, well, this was the best decision for me to take the jab. You can do your own research.
That's bogus. That's bogus. A leader has to speak for the others, not just for himself. A leader is responsible for the choices others make. The leader is responsible to help them make the right choices, not his opinion, but what Srila Prabhupada says.
The real trouble with
no, go ahead.
The real trouble with the leaders that make that push the jab and so on is authority. Actually, I came to this realization about it because we're taught, the whole description of advancement in Krishna consciousness is basically faith, increasing faith in the right place in Krishna. And we see basically across the board people who buy the mainstream narrative. It's basically just because they've placed their faith in the wrong place. Oh, the people on TV told me it's safe. The CDC did a study. The study says it's safe. And like I've talked to a few of these devotees and a few of the non-devotees who advocate this stuff. And basically it's like, well, look at Maddie de Grey. She was in the study and they did not count her and she had severe reactions. And they're like, oh, but it's not in the study. It's like, yeah, of course it's not in the study. They're not doing the studies properly. So so even these spiritual leaders, it's just because they grow up trusting the TV, they grow up trusting the scientists. And well, another question is, how does that relate to, can you still hear Krishna consciousness from these people? I was taught that they're separate, right? Like if my mechanic gives me the wrong advice on what oil to put in my car, it doesn't make me doubt his ability to spread Krishna consciousness. So if they give me the wrong medical advice, should I put it in the same boat?
Well, the thing asking why they don't read the books. The Srila Prabhupada explains in the books that the Rakshasas are in charge. Right there in seventh canto. He explains it. The world is being controlled by the Rakshasas. It's a very dangerous place. So if they're in control, nothing's going to come out on an international global level like the jabs without their control. So just tell the leaders, read the books, give them the chapter, give them the page number, tell them to read Rajavidya, King of Knowledge, where Krishna says, Srila Prabhupada writes the same thing in the Rajavidya. He writes at page 41, and then he writes the same thing in his Bhagavatam. It's Shastra. It's Shastra.
There used to be a culture of debate. I'd love to see one of these devotees that's pushing the jab have a debate with somebody like yourself. And, based on Prabhupada's statement, based on Vaishnava Pramana, and, bring in a little bit of the science and whatnot over whether we should be pushing the vaccines or not. I don't think they'd do it, but wouldn't that be Vaishnava culture to have a debate about it with two thought leaders on the issue?
Wouldn't be Vaishnava what?
Vaishnava culture. So to have debates, you get intelligent Brahmins who know the issue well, understand the arguments on either side, and they present arguments. And
No. They cause a controversy because they ignore what Srila Prabhupada said. Whenever Srila Prabhupada is ignored, then a controversy is created immediately. So you want to have two people talk about a controversy? The question is, what did Srila Prabhupada say?
You'd show them in the debate that they're not in keeping with Prabhupada's teachings when they present this attitude. That would be what.
That's right. Then when that ends the debate right there. There's no more debate. What does Srila Prabhupada say? Whatever he says ends the debate. Finished.
But they won't have the debate. They'll just do cancel culture. I'm just going in the shop, so I'm going to go mute again.
Well, of course. What can you do? Then you don't have to follow. If they won't have a debate, there's nothing to talk about. Then you just follow Srila Prabhupada. What does he say? Well, we go by what he says. And not what you won't say, but what he says, what Srila Prabhupada says. That's the guide. That's the standard.
They will say Prabhupada took the jabs in his own time, but there's no real proof. There's one mentioned reference to Hong Kong flu back in 67, 68, but that
yeah. But listen, some of those vaccines were genuine in those days, and the devotees insisted that Srila Prabhupada take it. You see, so he was listening to them. I heard that story, but the Hong Kong flu, some of these vaccinations were vaccinations, but these are not vaccinations. Yeah, these are not vaccinations.
Don't use the V word, because there's a chance that YouTube will make a strike against.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Completely close down the channel. No, it's okay. It's okay. I understand. I might have to rush this actually to, as soon as we're done, I have to rush it to Pradyumna, maybe to see if he can get it up.
Edit that part out. Get it out.
Yeah. Anyway, it's after 10 o'clock here. Thanks a lot, Arjuna, for your point. I totally agree with you. We've needed, just like we need a devotee to go online with Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist, and duke it out with him. So similarly, we also need someone in ISKCON to do the same. I'm getting a phone call from someone right now. Anyway, I hope to see everyone on Friday, okay? All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. See you